All right. So look, welcome everybody. This is our third installment or third webinar in a series that we launched a few weeks ago, knowing that teachers are really in the throes of the moment of trying to sort of find alternative ways to engage their students. Our focus has been on remote learning. We know that all of our Victorian and New South Wales teachers have been doing an amazing job this term. And so we wanted to be able to sort of help and give you guys some ideas and some inspiration. So I think it's really important for everyone to really focus on what the objective for today is. And that is that, look, we will be doing a bit of a high level sort of overview of the content today. And so if you're looking for more of a how-to, how these particular lessons were built, then we are running a 101 session tomorrow, and there's scope for some more 101 sessions as well to be able to really tease it out. So look, I thought I'd put our remote learning goals up here. My amazing colleague, Beck Woolnough, who has been running the part 1 and part 2 of this series, has really popped this in, and I thought it's a really nice way for us to revisit what a successful remote learning promotes. And for us, you know, we are teachers, and so we do know your spaces quite intimately. For us, it would be about building connections, okay? Having those interactive and collaborative activities, validation of student contributions, engagement and instill love of learning in our students, and empowerment of student voice and choice. So everything that I'm going to go through with you today will actually cover a lot of how can we reach these particular goals. So it's really just nice to keep that in the forefront of our minds today for our learning goals. But today is breaking the remote learning fatigue. And the irony is not lost on me that we're running a webinar about this. So I know that we have all been probably on screens today and we're all feeling a lot like the picture up the top there. But really what I'm hoping today is to give you guys some inspiration in how to break that fatigue for yourself and also, most importantly, for your students as well. So we're going to go through some really cool resources that I've come across. So look, a little bit about me. If you haven't sort of been on one of my webinars before, I'm Molly. I'm an education consultant at Smart Technologies. I have been a teacher for more than 15 years and predominantly in high school. So I taught French and English and have done some primary French. I've been a year level coordinator, head of faculty, but most importantly, I'm passionate about sort of education and the student experience. And a lot of what I have to talk about today is about that student experience, and it's about sort of ensuring that the lessons that we are delivering during remote learning are ones that they feel like excited to attend. They know that it's sort of what I'm trying to give you guys is some variety as well. I know that chatting to my son who's in year 1 doing remote learning, it's the repetition that's really sort of got him. So that has also been a bit of my inspiration. And I lean on him and his experiences in terms of creating this webinar for you today, okay? Look, if you do want to get in contact with me, I'm happy for you to email me directly, mollyturner@smarttech.com, and you can follow my Instagram at mollysmartau. All right, so look, I came across this. I was trying to find a great quote to kind of start off the session, but I just couldn't help but put this in here. I think it just sums up how we are pretty much all feeling at the end of this term. And I know as well that there's going to still be some weeks in term 4 that we will be looking to remote learning. So let's try and turn this kind of picture around. Let's try and get some really exciting, engaging lessons happening where we're really breaking that fatigue. So look, I do want to check in with you guys today and see how you are feeling after your day today, even after your week. If you haven't sort of been online today, I'd love to sort of hear from you. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to push out this little, it's called a smart response. And what I'm actually looking for is for you to, so I know I've got 8 people in there. For those of you that jumped on late, I'll just give a quick demonstration here. If you missed it, pop into hellosmart.com. And there's my teacher number, okay? So have a look in the chat of GoToWebinar, and we've got some instructions on there. I'd love to hear from you guys, okay? So how are you feeling today? Check it out here. I've got flat. Yep. Here we go. Frustrated. Well, they start populating here in my little word web. I'm feeling pretty fatigued. So I'm feeling great. It's really good to see that you're great on a Monday. Over it already, and we're just into the week. You must be over it, I'm sure, from the term that you've had, which we're just in that sort of final couple of weeks, which is really exciting. A bit foggy, unmotivated. Here we go. Over it mentally, absolutely. So we are feeling this way, and our students, I imagine if we did this with our students as well, they'd be feeling pretty similar too, okay? So we've got the next question is how has remote learning changed your thinking around traditional methods of teaching and learning? I think that when I, started this particular webinar, I was really sort of thinking about what it was that, as a teacher, how has it sort of changed your perspective? I think we all at the beginning really sort of started to try and digitize our classes. So all our lessons that we would do normally in the classroom, we would just put that in a digital space, and it just maybe sometimes it just doesn't translate over as much as we really thought it would. So I was really interested to know about what has sort of changed about it. So lots of people say that they miss the face-to-face there, which is completely understandable. So I am interested, just let me know what year level you teach there. So we've got I can see there we've got all the way from year 7 through to year 12, K to 12 special ed. We've got adult and primary. It's really great to see some of the adult educators on our webinars recently. We'd love to do some more work with you guys as well, because I think when we look back at majority of our webinars, we have focused on that K to 12. So we're really looking to expand into that adult education space, because we know that we've been having some great successes, particularly at sort of TAFE and university. All right, well, thanks for sharing that there. And then have you used Lumio before? So let's have a look here. I've got some with yes, a lot with no, and some I've got no, what is that? So that's positive. At least you all know what's sort of happening here. Look, I just want to do a bit of a call out. For those of you that haven't ever used Lumio before, these 3-part webinar series have been a little bit different in that we give a really high level overview. So it's not about the really nitty-gritty how-to. It's just about that inspiration, those examples, lessons that you can sort of take, and this one in particular is connected to breaking the remote learning fatigue, okay? So if you kind of get a little bit lost today, don't worry. We have a lot of webinars that are the how-to, and we can break it down for you. We will be doing a follow-up email, which will give you more resources, okay? So please today just know that there is definitely sort of scope for you to better understand the how-to. Okay, so thanks for sharing all that with me today. And I know that it's not, look, it's completely understandable. It's really nice to see, obviously, when you're sharing your ideas and your feelings about sort of where you're at mentally, that others are feeling exactly the same. But look, to start off with this particular webinar today, I'm really interested to sort of hear from you about, well, where is that fatigue coming from? Have we kind of had that time to step back a little bit? I know it's kind of like a business. When you're often working within a business, you work in the business and you don't get a lot of time to work on the business, right? And it's a little bit like our classes. I know that when we're in this remote learning that you've had to really sort of flip your delivery and teaching methods, that you may not have had the chance to really put under the microscope, well, what is it exactly of where the fatigue is coming from? So what I'd like you to do there is just in your little chat box or in Lumio, I'd like you to sort of let me know, well, what makes you feel fatigued? What is it, even in your teaching practices or in your workspace as well? What is it that is making you sort of fatigued? And then what are those signs that your students are feeling fatigued as well? So I think it'd be really nice if we could all just share some ideas there. And all you need to do in that little chat box is write it in the little box there, and then we can select the category and send it. Okay, so I'm just as well going to turn your names off so you all feel like you can be really honest. Trying to balance home and school. I hear you. Alternate ways of, yeah, let me switch through these. That's probably been the biggest one, and I don't know if anyone has littlies at home that can't go to childcare at the moment, but that has really added an extra layer to this whole working remotely. Sitting in front of a computer all day, absolutely. And that's what I said, like the irony is not lost on me today that we are sitting on a computer talking about fatigue. I'm going to sort of give you some examples of some teachers that have looked at ways in which it doesn't have to be about the computer all day, okay? Because I think that's a really key component of breaking that fatigue. Yep, screen time. All the never-ending emails and staying on top of everything going on. It does seem like it never ends. Staring at a computer screen, the monotony, that's right, trying to break that repetition. I do have some examples about that today. Not knowing what you're doing, I'm sure you do, and you're doing a brilliant job. We're all sort of learning as we go, aren't we? A blurred boundary between home and school. I was actually talking in a webinar a couple of weeks ago about the work-life balance, and that really came up a lot for teachers in terms of having those blurred lines. Juggling kids and hubby, homework balance, there you go. Lack of a third space or place between work and home. We really do need those physical boundaries, don't we, sometimes, to know yep, longer hours, constant Zooms for lessons and stage staff meetings, rethinking purpose, goals, desired outcomes of lessons and presenting them in an engaging way. Yep, well, that's why you're all here. I really sort of was reflecting on why these webinars have really resonated with the education community and why you're here with us today. And that's because you're looking for alternative ways. So hopefully today I can show you some that are super engaging. Lack of coffee, that's an easy fix. I don't have that in my slides, but I probably should have popped it in there. Supporting a student teacher while remote learning. Oh my God, I didn't even think of that. And I feel for those beginning teachers too. So much to juggle. Yeah, constant interruptions, alternate ways of giving out information and searching clips to replace the teacher. 3 girls under the age of 6. Wow. They are massive, everyone. So look, in terms of the signs for students, I was really interested in this one here. So them stopping submitting schoolwork, so that's a really huge sign that they've disengaged. Possibly home issues as well, that you might be able to see your own students, your own littlies at home having that. Cameras off, less verbal response, definitely. I think this one's a really big one, that less verbal response. Them having the cameras off is sometimes maybe they're just not in that space at that time. So a lot of the resources that we'll go through today really looks at ways that they can be very self-directed and self-motivated and put that agency and responsibility back on them. And hopefully that kind of can break their fatigue because they're not sort of being forced to do it at certain times. Students overwhelmed with the work, absolutely. Lots more pajamas. I know I'm actually guilty of that. I try and get my son to change every day, but then I think I'm half in my pajamas too. Dropping attendance, not joining Zoom anymore. Yep, big sign there. Slower to respond, and when they don't want to engage. A lot more foreheads or broken cameras. They're all quite similar in what they're saying, right? That we're seeing them almost retracting a little bit. So really disengaging, really kind of retreating. And I think if I look at my own son's experiences, I've seen those behaviours in him as well. This is really fantastic information. So thanks for sharing that. And look, hopefully today I can start drawing connections between the resources that I have and possibly coming up with some strategies or solutions to either break, definitely to break those signs of your students being fatigued. And hopefully by doing that at the same time, you can also, you're getting a little bit of time back to you. Okay, so there are definitely some resources there that will connect to those things. Okie dokies. Look, before we move on, I might just quickly tap into my moderator, Kendall, and just ask, is there anything poignant in the questions or comments that perhaps you'd like to add to this?
Not just yet. I had a few people asking for your class ID, so that's 3070. Yep. I think everyone has got in for now, though.
Perfect. Okay, great.
All good.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Kenny. Okay, right, let's get cracking then. So I came across a really great article from Dr. Christy Goodwin, and if you haven't already, I can find the link and pop it in the chat for you. But something that really sort of resonated was work in sprints, not marathons. And I don't think anyone has the energy to be running that marathon, especially at this stage of the term. So what I've got here are some examples of how you can work in sprints in Lumio, and some of those resources that are already available within Lumio for you to borrow or use or pick and choose, whatever you decide to do with it, and that you can be able to sort of push this out to students. So the other thing I wanted to add to Dr. Christy Goodwin's there, though, is to mix it up. So if I really look at my son's comments sort of as the days have gone by, it's the repetition that's really got him disengaged. So things like, oh, I hate learning, and I just think this isn't, what you'd be used to in the classroom. And look, no disrespect, I know that teachers are doing the best job that they possibly can. But I thought, look, let's show you some ideas there on how to kind of mix it up and how to have activities there that we're definitely working in sprints. So what I did was I went to, and I'll show you at the end here, this one was on equivalent fractions. So this teacher has designed, there's about 5 pages, okay? Now you can run this live like we're doing now, or want to break the Zoom fatigue, you could send it out. You would be able to send out a link to your student. So there's a share a link there. I'll also show you another place where to share a link, and they could be accessing this on their own time. So I think one of the educators before had mentioned like trying to find clips that sort of swap you out. Here's a good example of finding a YouTube clip, obviously, and when we use YouTube in Lumio, we know it's safe because it is a safe white hat search, but there won't be any ads and it's not going to play the next YouTube. So this is a good little one. If you did want to do your own instruction, there's also scope to do that too in our edit section. So this particular teacher's put together great little YouTube clip on equivalent fractions, and you'd be able to be playing that on your own. Like I said, we could play it live together as a class. If I just hit play there, we could play it together. We could stop at certain times, and as a teacher I could really reaffirm or re-explain what the clip is saying. And then what happens is then it's really off to the student. So what the teacher would do then is they could pop it onto student pace here. I'm not going to right now because I want to direct the content, and then it gives a nice little reminder that the students can go back to about and it's a really simple one, how fraction or the terminology, what's a numerator, what's a denominator, and the fraction bar, just as a reminder as to what they're going to come across in the next few activities, okay? So that they can go back to. And then basically what they've got is some really nice little games that they then start to build their own knowledge, right? Now, remember, if we're breaking the fatigue with the students, it's really up to you at this stage as to where this fits into the day and how you want your students to be accessing it, okay? So like I said, it could be on demand or it could be live. My suggestion at this stage is to make it on demand, and so they know that, like my son, we give him the choice at the beginning of the day to where he wants to start in his program. So his teacher does encourage to eat the frog, that's his line, which means to get rid of the harder stuff first. But sometimes even just giving students that that choice as to where they'd like to start is a really nice way for them to have that agency and to feel like they're not sort of, you know, having to be sort of forced into fractions at 9 o'clock in the morning. So this is just a nice little series of games that the teachers got here. Just a recap of, you know, what was presented in the YouTube, and then the students sort of just fill that out, and you can see obviously from you that you've got that. Now, if I wanted to, as a teacher, if I really wanted to see every single way, you know, that how my students were faring in these games, I could get them to do a screenshot. But to tell you the truth, these particular activities are really just designed for the students to be accessing the information in their own time and to be working through it together. Okay, so well, that's not one. Let's see if I can get one. Oh, no, it was there. So we can sort of start seeing, yeah, from them, look, this is really not a formative assessment. It's really for them just to be having some fun and with the content. All right, and then there's another one here with matching equivalent fractions. So once the students have gone through and there's been sort of 3 little games for them to play, there is then a handout for the students there, and I can sort of set this up for you, and basically there's the teacher model there. So basically what the teacher is then saying is, okay, well then now I want to see from you how you use the fraction bars to show a half, and again it's a nice little interactive activity. Now, everything that I've just gone through with you now is available for you in our resources section, and I will spend some time in there just to show you how to access those. But this you could then use as your, oh, they want a half. This you could then use as a little bit of a tap in to see, did they understand the activity, and do they have a really good understanding then of equivalent fractions. It's just a nice way there for them to do that. So there's a lot there. And I suppose what's really key about these particular activities is it's really on the students to be completing, and they're the ones that are having that active role. They're not passive in any way. They're very active in the lesson. All right. So that was one in terms of just a quick little sprint one. Now, obviously, that all had to do with fractions. You could swap that out and do it with a narrative. I know for the adult educators on the call as well, you might be looking at some of this content thinking, oh, those games, they're just a little bit too young for my crowd. Look, the templates you can swap out. You don't have to have the monster graphics, and it's still a really nice way for your students to be interactive with content. Okay, so we know that the more that you're interacting with it, you're not passively sort of just taking in somebody's words like we're doing now. You're actually sort of you've got more of an input, if you like, or you've got more of that sort of activity happening, and then so you can kind of swap them out. Okay, I do have some other content as well that I think you'll be able to see how it sits really nicely in that adult education space. So look, the other thing I wanted to also point to as well is taking breaks from the tech. So if we go back to that shout it out that we just had before, and we're all sort of a little bit sick of staring at the screen and having that fatigue just coming from being on a computer all day, which there's a lot of research behind why that is the case. But what I came across was one of our Smart Exemplary educators. She's brilliant, Gretel Watson. She has this really cool activity here, and I think you can actually use this as a bit of a template if you like. And basically that they were looking at different sort of shapes, but there's a lot of creativity in here as well. So what Gretel's done is that she gets on the call with the students, and it's about 15 minutes worth of instruction, okay? Because what Gretel was finding was in her classes, if it went over 20 minutes, the kids are just checking out. So again, she's just got, she'll do some teacher instruction to start with, and then it'll be handed over to the students to be doing their own activities. And this one actually then comes into the physical space, okay? So basically together, Gretel will explain the activity and will demonstrate. There's a really cute little handout here, which again is part of our templates, so our manipulative templates that we've got there. And basically then it's just a little, okay, so you've sort of seen me do it now. I want you to use the shapes to make a kite, for example. And they can come in here and Gretel can model the activity for the student. So how to flip and reverse shapes like that to make different shapes, for example. Yeah. And how we can do that in a number of different ways. There we go. And we can create some really cool new shapes there. And this sort of gets them started. Again, they've got, because it's a handout activity, they can then the teacher's able to sort of come in and, sorry, I'm picking on people, come in and be able to see the different shapes that they're making. The teacher can give that direct and instant feedback on there as well. So it's a nice way to have the students a little bit accountable. So knowing that they're doing something live, because the teacher's going to come in here and give some feedback onto their handouts, for example, so that they have to be active, okay? So it's all about making sure that they are part of the teaching and learning journey, okay? It's not just the teacher directing. So that's quite cute. And then there's some inspiration for some artwork here where Gretel just shows how we can make our own. And then there's some instructions for them to go and do it in the physical space. So get off the screens now. Obviously with this one, they have to have the resources for it, but you can do it obviously with a lot of other things. I know that we've had a lot of teachers using the, pictures as well, and so the students then getting off the Zoom class and then being able to sort of go around and document something that they're doing in that physical space. So there's some inspiration obviously for the students, and a little instructional, just, you know, another little YouTube clip for them to say, hey, if you forgot what we were talking about at the beginning there, here's a really nice demonstrative YouTube that you can watch just to come back. Now, what I've then added to it, because I was thinking about what's a nice way then for the students to be kind of documenting their work. So there's a really great little template that we've got, and the students then I would be asking them to take pictures along the way of their physical space, and then they can upload that into this space here. So first of all, I started off with, and here's the materials I started off with. And then they actually are documenting the process all along the way. Now, this particular activity, it doesn't have to be in a day sequence. It can be over an extended period of time as well. So maybe this week, I just want you to make this piece of artwork. And then along the way, I want you to sort of document that for me. So I'll show you as well where to find those particular templates where the students can do that too. Now for my high school English, I use this a lot in terms of I want you to sequence the story, or I want you to show me how you started to tease out your argument, for example. So it doesn't have to be sort of, and along the way, if they're like me and they still like using their pen and paper, they can be taking little photographs of that and uploading that into this digital space here. So I thought that was a cute little activity, and obviously then the students pop their finished artwork onto a handout for them. So in terms of other resources of breaking that monotony, and I was gonna put you all on the spot today, and I didn't. But you could be having, and this again is in our resources. You can be doing things like have little brain breaks, which I'm sure you're popping in there. We know even in a physical space how important brain breaks are. But again, this can be one that we can do together as a class, or we could leave it there for the students to be doing throughout the day. So they can come back to a resource like this and say things like, well, actually, I really need some energy. I'm feeling so fatigued. How can I do that? And then maybe they can click on this little activity here, and it takes them to some little activity to hop around the room and give someone a jumping high five, okay? And then come back to your seat. So again, live or on demand is fine. This one here I do with my son throughout the day because he's a little pocket rocket. So I get him to choose one of these, whether we're getting up and doing 10 jumping jacks or having a quick little dance, 5-minute dance party, or even a meditative kind of breathing exercise, just something there just to, get the ants out of his pants. So this is a little bit different. People are probably thinking, well, that looks really great. They're all click-throughs, okay? Now, if you have a Smart Learning Suite license, you'll have something as well called Notebook. So these were created in Notebook, so that gives you the ability to be able to link to a page. Don't worry if you're just using the Lumio platform. What you'll be able to do is just put a heading here. So you'll be able to put the heading here for this is your focus one, okay? Oh no, sorry, this is your relaxing one. So this is a little template there where they go through and do the breathing, okay? So don't worry if you don't have Notebook. What you'll just need to do is just put it in terms of the headings rather than putting the links in there. But I think it's really important to have these peppered throughout your lessons throughout the day, and that really does to help break the fatigue. And we know that lots of teachers are doing that already in their kind of physical spaces, but it's a cool way to do it in a digital space as well. So there's some great little resources for you to think about how to break that and how to break that sort of cycle for them. Okay, Kendall, I'm going to check in with you at this stage. Has there been any sort of questions there? I might actually.
Not just yet on my end.
Okay, I'm interested to hear as well. So obviously there's some activities that we've got so far that I've been able to find. I'm just going to do a quick shout it out with everyone. What are some of your strategies, if you like? So if we look at those first two areas, so if we think about I'm not sure how easily you'd be able to demonstrate work in sprints, not marathons, but if you could pop something in there about maybe an idea that you've got that that you've sort of changed your practices from having like a 30-minute session at the beginning of the day to 3 10-minute sessions throughout the day. So if you could give us some examples there of what you've been doing to break that marathon run, if you like. And then also, what are some of the examples or strategies that you've been doing for your students to take some brain breaks? So obviously I've got those physical ones up there. Do you do guided meditation with your students? Are you encouraging them to only have half the day on a screen? So are there any strategies there that you can help to share with everybody on the call today? See if anyone's got some other creative ideas there. Oh, maybe I have to come back to this one. I'm sure you all do. Here, thank you. Flipped classroom, they come to class to review concepts. Look, I think that's a great one, and I know that works really well with my senior students to be able to do that. But I know that more and more those younger students are becoming quite adept at the flipped classroom. So I'm sending them stuff to perhaps do at home, and then maybe having just that Zoom session in the afternoon where you can check in to review the concepts. I like that. Have a chat at the start and encourage to do some cooking with the family. Oh, I like that. I'd like my kids to get into the cooking and go outside and some gardening. The outside and the gardening, I might just expand on that. I was actually chatting to my best friend who's she works in play therapy, and I was letting her know that I was feeling a little bit stressed and a bit sort of fatigued with having that juggle of work and my students. And she was sort of some really lovely advice. She said, the academic stuff is going to always be there, and schools are always going to support the students. And sometimes what they sort of need from you is just for you to play a game. So even putting that as a teacher and sharing that with your students and the students' families about, look, do some work, but then if you've got that time, go out, go for a walk, play the floor is lava, do some sort of game and activity with them. And I know that since I've been doing that, my kids have really sort of appreciated it, and then they're more willing to come back and then finish off the rest of their work. So that was also really good, but that's the same there. A mix of explicit video lesson with paper and pencil follow-up activity to get off the screens. And I'm really loving seeing a lot of schools recently actually having like a Wednesday as a completely no screen day. They're seeing how fatigued everyone is, their staff and their students. And obviously we know that well-being is paramount. So definitely if you can weave it into your day or even to the weekly schedule, I think that's fantastic that they can get off the screens. Morning lesson 10 to 11 with 10-minute activities and movement in between. Yep, I'm sure these are all really effective. Show an act of kindness to someone in the household as a break. I like that one. I'm going to start implementing that in my household, definitely. Set up, brain back section in the LMS so they have activities to go to. Encourage them to go outside, get some fresh air, play on the trampoline. Choice boards. The choice boards are great, and I know that Beck went through choice boards last week and the week after. So I didn't include it today, but if anyone is interested, I can definitely show you where those choice boards are. So again, we're giving the students that student choice and voice is how we kind of call it. Does not apply to me yet. Okay. I explain, demo or model some of the lesson activities and concepts in our schedule, then play some type of game with the class. These are all really fantastic. And I can capture these as well for all of you. I'm just very conscious of the time, Kenny. Okay, is this go to 3:15 or 4 o'clock? Go for a run around the garden. Kendall, is this go to 3:15 or 4 o'clock? I mean 4:15 or 4 o'clock?
I'm just checking the schedule.
Oh, sorry. Okay, cool. Look, this next one that I've got here, and this is, I think we look at that flipped learning concept, okay, and the student-centered, self-paced, active collaboration. I came across this resource, and I think for those adult educators and those that are teaching at high school, I think this is a really fantastic example, and you could use this as well as a bit of a template for your own. So the way that this has been designed is the teacher starts the class off together. Let me just get to that page. It's poetry, the power of words, okay? And there's a lot in here, but basically what the teacher will do on the outset is just to go through some of the slides with them. They have a handout for the students to do in their own time. So the teacher will just talk to that slide just to begin with. It's not activity time, it's just instructional time, and then ask the students obviously what they think of poetry, so they do that in a shout it out. And then she'll set up the collaborative activities. So she'll just talk to really briefly what the students will need to be done, like you'll need to watch the YouTube clip, and there's a note-taking section for you to fill out. And then there is a really cool collaborative activity. So what the teacher will do will set up that silent conversation, but just for the purpose of putting the students into groups, okay? So we have 14, we might say 3 groups, for example. And then what the teacher can do is, once they've got that, she can hit start workspace for the students and then basically say, okay, you're on your own. Now, this particular resource can be then done as a self-paced activity, almost like a project-based learning resource over a couple of days. And then at the end of the week, the teacher sort of comes back and they start to do that group discussion and they look into the collaborative workspace for them. So again, this is really nice resource. And I'm going to give you this whole thing here. But the way that it's designed and the way that it progresses is a really nice way that students can be coming in and out of it. And the fact that there is a collaborative activity in there, even though it's a student-paced activity or resource, it's really nice that they can then come into the spaces and then have that contact. They might even be in there at the same time as one of their students. Great, we do have 15 minutes. I got a little worried there. I thought it was 4 o'clock for some reason. So that's a really nice way.
The 101 is 4 o'clock. That's why you got me.
Okay.
Good question. Yes.
Too many webinars at the moment. So that's a nice way for them to be doing something self-paced. And again, there's our little button up here. Or if they want to, they can share out the link. So a nice way for this particular one where the teacher could be in now, if you think of it in a primary classroom, you could keep this running all day live and keep coming and checking in with the students. So you're able to check in on their handouts and see if anyone's completed their think, pair, share and give that direct and instant feedback. So that's one way that you could run this particular lesson. And then the other ways that you could run it would just be purely on the first 6 slides are for you to do in your own time. And at the end of the week, we'll come together and we'll have that group discussion and be able to talk through that concept. So it's a little bit like what someone had shared before on the Shout It Out in terms of that flip learning and having the teachings occurring and then coming back together as a group to go through the concepts and to answer any lingering questions that they've got there. So that is, I thought that was a really great resource that really promotes that, particularly for the high school level. Okay, so we'll come back to questions, comments and feedback, and we'll do, for those of you that want to stay on the call, I'll give you a little bit of an overview of Lumio if you're really unaware. But I want to show you now.
When you're ready, Mom.
Oh, yeah, sure. We can go. Yeah, we can go to questions now.
Oh, yep. Okay. Sure thing. Okay, so let me scroll down here. So Dawn has asked, I like the use of the monster characters explained in the templates. Are those templates already in Lumio? Already created in Lumio?
So is this, hopefully Dawn is, oh no, not that one there. Are these the little monsters that you're talking about? Explaining the slides? If they are, we are going to be handing out these monster stickers. So they are they're a resource that we use, and we have a really great arrangement of them. And we do have, so what I've done, and very well picked up there, Dawn, I've sort of popped little things on there when we're talking, when they've sort of related. So I don't know if you know our smart monsters, but they do all have dispositions. So this is Dimitri, and he's all about digital literacy. So if they're the monsters that you're talking about, you will get a copy of those monsters, and you can definitely pepper them throughout your presentations. What's a really nice way of being able to do it? And I'll go to, did you want to add something there, Kendall?
Oh, there's a few more questions. I was actually just getting
Oh,
my notepad to write down to send
oh,
them to
no
Dawn.
worries. I thought you were going to add to that. Look, what I'll show you as well, like for example, with those monsters, what's a really nice way to be able to sort of come in as well. So sometimes we want to write our feedback, but sometimes it's just really nice to give some little stickers. And what I can do here is I can pop in with those images, and I've got them on file. And I can pop into my stickers and I go, well, shout out to you. And it's a nice little way just to give them some of that feedback. So I use them a lot, obviously, in my presentation slides, but I also use them in terms of feedback from my students. So just a little bit of a shout out, for example, in that one there. Hopefully that I understood the question correctly there. If I haven't, please elaborate in the chat. Is there
Okay,
another
there's another
question?
question. Yeah, there's a couple more. There's three more, actually. So Alexandra has a question. Actually, I think she has, no, she just has one question. Can we be shown where to access the choice boards?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I'm about to go into resources. So nice one. Is there any other questions on this particular resource before I move out of it?
No, not on that. There's two other, not on that topic, but Dominique has asked, what if not all students access the information and how can we have group work? So
Okay.
might have
So
to do those one by one. Yeah.
yeah, I will. I'll show you how we turn a particular page into group work there. And then also I'll show you as well how we turn a resource into an on-demand lesson rather than us having to run anything live. Okay, so what I did want to sort of show you really quickly is where we came to. Okay, so the resource where I got everything from here, and in terms of explore resources, there's so much content already available for you. Some of them I'm lucky enough to hold. So, for example, the that art one that we did with our Smart Exemplary Educator, I'd be happy to share that with anyone if they are interested. But if we go to explore resources here, we've got a new search feature in here. And if I popped in something like a choice board, there's a lot of choices for our choice boards, which is really cool. So one of my favorites is the math choice board. This is really quite clever. Casey is one of our educational strategists that works out of Calgary, and she created this. Now, again, she did create it from notebook, so you'll be able to edit some of it, but just be mindful of all the links that are connected to these tiles, if you like. Oh, of course that happens. It's probably because I've got it. So yeah, so I'll show you just really quickly. If I save that to my library now, I'm able to take it into my editing space, and then I can change. Oh, golly, I think it's my bandwidth is really struggling at the moment with home learning and a husband that's also working from home. Let me have a look. I do have it here. Sorry to scroll. I know it's not very helpful for the fatigue. Where are you? Math task cards. That's another one I think which is quite similar. Oh no, not the one I want. Sorry guys. Why did that happen? Oh, there we go. So if I go and edit that one there, what you can see is the way the case is built, this is again through a series of links. So if you do add pages to that, be mindful it's going to change the links, okay? Because if you're going to add a page, you're going to have to add it to the end of Casey's deck there. I hope that makes sense. What you should be able to do though is unlock, I'm going to try and do this without activating the link, is unlock the There it is. You should be able to come in and edit some of the text. If that text doesn't work for you, you want to sort of use some different language around that or change what you want the students to do, you can actually do that. Okay. So that's one of the examples of a choice board. We've got some others as well that really fit into, there's a really nice one on social and emotional learning. Oh, now I've gone to my Google Drive. Well done. There's a really nice one that sits into social and emotional learning, and it's more about the choices of how they, of what activities that they want to start for the day. So that's also a nice way to incorporate a choice board into your lessons, where you're giving them that choice at the beginning, and that they're able to sort of choose and then reflect on that particular activity. All right, so I'm back in here. Oh, look how many summer maths choice boards. Nice work. Okie dokie. So was there another question there? Oh, there was a question about how do we turn something into a collaborative activity?
Yeah, how can we have group work? And
Yeah.
there was two parts. There was another part to that question. Sorry, the first part was, what if not all students access the information?
Right. So that's a good question. With the collaborative activities, it is you definitely need all students who want to collaborate. But what you can do is you could set up a situation where for those that have joined the live class, and maybe I'll just change this particular one here. So if you have a slide, so this is just if I wanted everybody to work on this in pairs, for example, and I had this page up here, I'm in edit mode at the moment, I would just go up to my little magical wand and be able to make it a collaborative workspace activity. Now, if I didn't have, and it's I'm sure the case, not all my students attending live, what I would do is I'd actually, and that particular one I know I got from my manipulatives, yeah. I would go down to my fraction tiles there, and I would then also make that an individual handout. So for some of them, it would be nice if you're in the live class, I can pop you in a group with somebody, or if you just want to work individually, then you work on slide 15, for example. So we do have to set up collaborative activities and all like that smart response. So any assessment, same with like things like monster quiz, they all have to be done live because it's a group collaborative activity. So if they miss it, make sure you've got an option for them to be doing it as an individual handout. There another question there?
Yes, there is. Dawn has another question.
Great.
By on demand, do you mean asynchronous? I like that on demand term students may relate easier, i.e. linking to movies.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I'm talking about. So for this particular activity here, like I've got this little hexagon creation game. If I wanted to make it on demand, and it is a nice way maybe, and maybe the terminology might resonate a bit better with students. It's a nice way to let them know, hey, it's up to you. Okay, it's up to you've got to get it done, but it's up to you when you get it done. So what I would do with this particular resource, rather than hitting the start button, I would share a link and I would copy that link and I would email it to my students, or I could pop it in Seesaw, or however you're communicating with your students, for them to click on that link. What happens is when they click on that link, if you haven't sort of seen what happens, if you haven't done it, I'll go to an incognito window. As a student, I click on the link and basically it lets me into the lesson, and I can, it's automatically in student mode. So you don't need to switch between teacher mode and student mode. They can either, yeah, they'll sign in. Oh, here we go. They can use their email address. Oh, sorry guys. Come on, here we go. So they can, if you want to, look with older students, I do encourage them to use their email address, and they all have a school email address. And then if that's a little bit tricky for the younger students, then that's fine. You can set it so anyone can access it, that you don't have to have a sign in. This particular teacher, and of course, I just happened to choose a resource where you had to have a sign in. All right. And then the student can just move through at their own leisure. So they're able to go through any of the slides that they want to. Here we go, at their own pace. So they could do a couple of slides together to begin with in the morning, and then leave it, go and do something, have some active play, and then come back to it. So they have full movement throughout that lesson resource. And apologies, everyone, my bandwidth is struggling. So you can see there that I can go on my handout, and I can move through the particular lesson there. But yeah, remembering that anything that is on demand, if you did want to have a collaborative activity, then that is going to have to occur live. Any other questions there?
No, not. I think that wraps it up for questions.
Okay. Well, look, so just lastly, what I would encourage you to do when you've got the time is to have a look at particularly these featured lessons that are up the top here. A lot of them, they have sort of come out of North America and the UK, which have been in the throes of remote learning. There is a lot as well around our emotional literacy or managing classrooms. So things like in emotional literacy, we've got some really great templates for them to look at. I like the ones where it's checking in on, here we go, my weekly work habits. So I'd be doing something like that at the end of the week, where they can sort of check in to really monitor how they were, how they had progressed, and perhaps have some focus for next week. All right, well, just before we end it all, I would love, I'm going to come back in here. So if I can get you just to pop back into my digital classroom, it's a really nice way just for me to get an understanding of what's been something that has been a plus, a minus, and an interesting. So something that perhaps you'll take back into your classrooms this week, maybe in your planning for term 4. What's something that you found really useful? What is something perhaps that fell a little short that I could perhaps reflect on in terms of maybe I didn't explain something quite in a lot of clarity, or maybe you need some more resources on something here, and something that you found interesting, perhaps something that you hadn't sort of come across before. And I won't display your name so you can be there. The group work is a really nice way for students to be, I found that all the times that my son is online and working with a peer, he's been way more engaged than when there's that time where the teacher's just going through something, then he has to do an activity on his own. So definitely having that collaborative activity, and whether or not you just do that at the beginning of the day. So it's a nice sort of way to start it off, or maybe that they're coming back together as a group is a really nice way to use those collaborative tasks. Ideas for interactive and choice-based activities. I think as much as we can give our students that choice and that voice, that they're feeling like they've got more control over it. And the more that they sort of feel that, I would argue that they're more actively involved in it, and therefore they're not sort of getting as easily fatigued because they're really driving it. The resource library with the templates, and I know that I've only touched on a few of them there, but there are so many, and there's more and more sort of coming out as the weeks go by. Yes, I'm glad that there were some great ideas for activities there, or a lot there. Resources that are readily available. you know, be kind to yourself. We know that you're also fatigued. Go and have a look at what else is available. And if you don't find stuff straight in Lumio as well, we also have something called Smart Exchange. So you just Google Smart Exchange, and there's thousands and thousands and more resources. Yep, to get off the tech and the brain breaks, that's been good. Try something new, not for remote learning, but also for face-to-face on-demand activities. And then we've also got our, yes, I know, part of me has been sort of really grappling with this while I've been actually making this webinar, about there is so much of it that they do need to be online, and that fatigue is pretty present for us all, but maybe we can just sort of tip that balance or tip that scale, so it's not just sort of all online, that we're really encouraging that offline, but that in some way that's being captured, because I know that everyone is having to assess students and to capture the teaching and learning that's happening. What else have we got in here? So much to share, so little time. Thank you. I know, look, we'll be doing a follow-up. Tomorrow's a Lumio 101. It can be used on any interactive board. That's, yeah, because it is web-based, but better together. It is better on a smart board, of course, but of course it can be used on any of those devices. Having to learn how to do all this now, I know, but look, it seems like a lot, and that's why I really started today to tell you that it's going to be, if you're new to it, it's going to seem really overwhelming, but we do a lot of webinars, and we have a lot of webinars, and we'll send you to those webinars and resources about how to really break it down and to create those amazing resources, like our educators today have, that I've borrowed from. The YouTube clips are a really good one, and I know that often I'll find my son down a YouTube hole because his teacher has given him a clip to watch, and then he just keeps kind of watching the next clips that come up, but that doesn't happen in Lumio. The choice boards are good, the mindfulness exercises, and I think we just had mindfulness week last week, so I think that should be every week. Those activities I know that were happening throughout the week were really helpful for everybody, including the teachers. Platform, thank you everybody. Different types of interactive activities. Look, I will give you back your afternoon. We are just a couple of minutes over. I really appreciate that feedback, and all of your input today. So I know that sharing amongst colleagues is a really nice way for us to get inspired, to get other ideas, but also to you know, sort of break, that fatigue that we know it's not just on us. And sometimes I think we feel a little bit isolated in our four walls of our house with our family. But as much as you can reach out to one another and to lean on each other for ideas, it's been fantastic. So I'll try and capture that as well in our feedback, in our follow-up emails, and keep an eye out for that, because we've got some really cool resources that will, including this lesson resource that I've gone through today. Look, all the best. Good luck for the sprint to the end of term. I kind of secretly hoped that schools would break a week early, but that is not the case. But the end is nigh, so very exciting. Keep up the amazing work, and thank you so much for joining today.